You could ask everybody to mute, except for the panelists.
Someone's not muted.
If we could ask everyone to mute except the panelists. So Carol.
Okay,
Yeah.
good evening and welcome to Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Epsilon Omega Chapter in Baltimore, celebration of Women's History Month. Tonight we'll be highlighting Elizabeth Catlett. I am Carol Robinson, the chairman of the Target for the Arts.
And good evening, everyone. My name is Chandria Proctor. I am the chairman for the Target One HBU for Life. And I just want to say thank you to our lead, Keziah Cologne, for partnering with Sandy Adams and Carol Robinson. Thank you for inviting us to be partners with the arts.
Good evening, everyone. I am Lois Knight Harrison, and I bring you greetings on behalf of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Epsilon Omega Chapter, as we are celebrating 100 years of dedicated service to the Baltimore metropolitan area. Welcome to yet another phenomenal Women's History event. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the great presentation that will be coming your way. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Jan Wood Carter, and I'm the Vice President for Program for Epsilon Omega Chapter. I echo the greetings from our President, Lois D. Knight Harrison. Thank you for being here in this another installment of our series. If you haven't been attended any of them, I think you will enjoy this one. And I think you would have enjoyed the other ones. And we look forward to a great presentation and lots of information gained. Thank you for being here.
Dr. Tanya Ringo is our region representative to the International Program Committee and our North Atlantic Region Program Chairman. Target for the Arts. Alpha Kappa Alpha will expose students to arts enrichment and culture by focusing on visual and performing arts and by showcasing talent through the exploration of writers, entertainers, and various other artists. The Salute to the Black Arts Movement will focus on student research and celebration of American artists during the Black Arts Movement. Chapters will champion activities that encourage the movement message and highlight members of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority who serve as leaders and participants. Activities will include art events, poetry slams, dancing, painting, performing arts. You may want to put your view options on speaker view so you can see all the panelists.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Zaya Cologne. I am the committee member and program lead for Target One. Target One, HBCU for Life, a call to action. Alpha Kappa Alpha will continue its focus on education with an emphasis on historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs. Chapters will promote and market historically Black colleges and universities and encourage students to attend HBCUs as a sustainable measure. Activities will include researching and publishing information regarding prominent Alpha Kappa Alpha women and other notable individuals who attend HBCUs. Recognizing that HBCU funding is one of the primary obstacles that threaten the long-term growth and survival of HBCUs. Members will be encouraged to financially support HBCUs. Alpha Kappa Alpha will implement an AKA HBCU Endowment Initiative in partnership with EAF, in which an endowed scholarship will be established at each accredited four-year HBCU. The goal is to stamp the Alpha Kappa Alpha brand of financial support on each HBCU campus to help students remain in school, complete their course of study, and receive their college degrees. HBCUs. Historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, are institutions of higher education in the United States that were established before the Civil Rights Act of 1964, with the intention of primarily serving the African American community. In 2018, there were 101 HBCUs located in 19 states, the District of Columbia and the US Virgin Islands. Of the 101 HBCUs, 51 were public institutions and 50 were private nonprofit institutions. HBCUs in Maryland are Bowie State University, Morgan State University, Coppin State University, and the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore.
Hello, my name is Sandy Adams, and I am a member of the Target 4 Committee and program lead for this program. Today, we would like to honor Elizabeth Catlett, born April 15th, 1915, died April 2nd, 2012. She was a graphic artist and sculptor. Now we'll watch a video biography on her life.
I admire things that I think are true. I admire things that I think are just. Because I've had a very difficult life, many difficult experiences in life as a Black woman, this colors what I feel.
Elizabeth Catlett was born in Washington, D.C. on April 15, 1915. Her father, a professor of mathematics at the Tuskegee Institute, died several months before her birth. Her mother, an educated teacher, worked as a truant officer in Washington's public schools. From her grandmothers, Catlett heard stories of slavery.
There was an African student who would come and sit. He would say, "Let me sit at your feet, grandmother, and tell me about slavery." And she would tell him different things, and I would sit and listen. And later on, when I was but because she had more time then, but we always went to stay with my grandfather and my grandmother on their farm in the summertime. And she was busy, really busy, all the time. But later on, when my grandfather died and she lived by herself, she would sometimes tell me things. No, it would upset me terribly.
Maybe
Especially with the contrast between what I saw of Black people during that period in films and what my grandmother would say. They were house slaves. Both my grandfather worked with the horses that people rode. They were young when slavery finished.
I understand they were about 18 years old when they
Somewhere
were
around
freed.
there.
From her mother, she heard about the realities of life in the slums of the nation's capital. These narratives shaped her early awareness of the sufferings and exploitation of Black people in the United States and laid the groundwork for her artistic vision. Catlett's decision to make her home in Mexico was in part a response to the Cold War's escalation of U.S. government attacks on progressive artists, intellectuals, and activists following the end of World War II. She also found a community of artists at the Taller de Grafica Popular, TGP, whose aims were in accord with her own. She fell in love with one of the workshop's members, painter and printmaker Francesco Mora. Catlett and Mora married in 1947. In 1962, Catlett became a Mexican citizen. Based upon her apparent political affiliations, she was subsequently denied entry to the United States until 1971. Though she was barren from her country of origin, during the 1960s, her work proclaimed solidarity with the civil rights and Black Power movements, and particularly emphasized the role of women in these movements.
When I decided that I was going to work with the problems of Black women, when I was going to try to make people see them as beautiful, dignified, strong people, instead of, as Ralph Ellison says, invisible.
Yes.
And another aim I had is to take art to our people who do not go to museums. And to do this, we have to get art by our people into museums.
Yes.
That's one of my aims.
In January 1970, her work was featured in Ebony magazine in an article titled, "My Art Speaks for Both My Peoples," bringing her increased visibility and numerous invitations to exhibit her work in the United States. Catlett's notable artwork, Sharecropper. Catlett once said the purpose of her work was to present Black people in their beauty and dignity for ourselves and others to enjoy. Sharecropper calls attention to the tribulations of tenant farming, a system in which rent for land is paid by the farmer with a part of the crop, creating an impossible cycle of debt while also offering a heroic portrait of an anonymous woman. Oh Freedom was a sculpture of Phyllis Wheatley created by Elizabeth Catlett. Phyllis Wheatley was born in West Africa and brought to Massachusetts as a slave. She was a gifted writer. She is noted for being the first person of African descent to write and publish a book of poetry in English. Elizabeth Catlett sculpted Wheatley to honor both the poet and Black women. In 1978, she is commissioned to create a bronze relief, Students Aspire, for Howard University. The art is located at 2300 6th Street Northwest on the Howard University campus. Elizabeth Catlett on Student Aspire. The two students are holding each other up to express unity rather than competition that exists in education. The equal sign signifies scientific as well as social equality, that everyone should be equal, men to women, students to faculty, Blacks to everyone else. The students form the trunk of a tree, the medallions are arranged in a triangle like branches, and the plaque represents roots. There is also a Catlett sculpture in the James E. Lewis Museum at Morgan State University. The piece is titled Pensive. It was purchased by the then Morris A. Soper Library, now Earl E. S. Richardson Library. In 2003, she is commissioned to create a monumental bronze relief of Invisible Man, a memorial to Ralph Ellison, located in Riverside Park, New York, New York. Elizabeth Catlett died on April 2nd, 2012, at her home in Cuernavaca, Mexico.
Alpha Kappa Alpha, Sorority Incorporated, Epsilon Omega Chapter, Target for the Arts, along with Target 1 HBCU for Life, welcome you to the fourth evening of celebration for women in the Black arts movement. Joining us tonight will be Mertice Badola, owner and operator of Gallery Mertice here in Baltimore, and Naima Mora, granddaughter and muse for Elizabeth Catlett and winner of Cycle 4 of America's Next Top Model.
The idea that I got for this sculpture is from my twin granddaughters who were 14 years old. And I spent a lot of time talking to them, and I was interested in the way they relate, because they're always fixing each other's hair. They do braids, and they do twists, and they do knots like this, and they tie cord ribbons around, or sometimes they put on fluffy things with elastic. And it was such, I'm always looking at people to see what forms they have, what interesting forms they have. And I thought this was a very interesting form.
So my first question to Naima, who is here on the screen, is how does it feel, Naima, to have a piece of art out there in your likeness in bronze that will be around for years and years and years to come?
Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you so much for having me. And Sandy, thank you so much for being diligent with keeping in touch with me. My life is always like so crazy and I'm always all over the place. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for keeping in touch with me and staying diligent with keeping me on top of like being a part of this forum this evening. And I wanted to say thank you to everyone who's here for helping to celebrate my grandmother. It's a little bit emotional watching the video and having the opportunity to speak with her amongst so many beautiful women of color this evening. So first and foremost, thank you. And I want to share my appreciation for that. But when we're talking about this idea of an immortalized image, you know, for the longest time, I didn't think about it that way. That's just my grandma. That's just Granny who did like, you know, a piece of work for me. It was beautiful. I'll tell you a little bit more of the backstory of that. My parents used to send us to Mexico, Cuernavaca. Both my grandparents, they met at Talla Grafica, which was said in the video that we just watched. Talla Grafica is where there was a group of artists where Diego Rivera was, Frida Kahlo as well as Siqueiros, Orozco. Lots of Mexican muralists came out of the Talla Grafica, which was kind of the idea of an open air arts forum where people actually created artwork in the open air, which means outside. And so my grandmother was really influenced by Mexican muralism in order to create work for her people. And the idea when we heard her speak about putting artwork into museums that were done by people of color, you know, and like creating artwork outside of public forums as well, so that people who were not attending museums could be able to interact and be influenced by and inspired by artwork, this language that is spoken in fine arts that speaks to the heart necessarily, more so than, you know, it also speaks to the mind, of course, but it speaks to the heart of people. And so they lived in Mexico City and met there. But after a while, they both became very successful artists and were able to create a family home for our family in Cuernavaca, which is just about 2 hours south of Mexico City. And it means the city of eternal spring. So year round, it feels like springtime. It's beautiful there. And they created a home for our family. It's a beautiful 3 little house estate with a swimming pool and fruit trees and a rose garden where both my grandparents are buried now. We spread their ashes in the rose garden in our family home. But as children, we used to get to go there all the time. We grew up in Michigan and Detroit, but we used to get to go to Mexico all the time to Cuernavaca to visit Granny and Grandpa. And it was beautiful because I got to witness them creating work in their studios there at the family home. And one summer, as she mentioned, when we were 14, me and my twin sister were doing each other's hair all the time. You know, you're 14, you want to get cute, you know, even if there's nobody even watching you. You know, you gotta get your hair done. So my twin sister and I, we were always doing each other's hair, and she was just so captivated by us. So she took pictures of us. She took pictures of me, and she really liked this little bump in my nose that I have here. And there was, you know, she was like, well, should I do a sculpture of Nia or a sculpture of Naima? Because we're twins. She really likes this little bump that I have in my nose that looks just like my grandfather's. I have a very native nose that points downwards. And she decided to make the sculpture Naima, and it comes in bronze and in terracotta and in black marble as well. And the black marble was on the cover of Sculpture magazine. I felt incredibly proud of that piece of work since she created it, because I got to see her whole process of actually creating this piece of work. We stayed the whole summer, and I saw her create the whole clay form and the molds and everything, which is still in her studio. And I never thought about necessarily being like, oh, this is gonna last forever throughout time. I just felt so completely appreciative and proud of this piece of work that my grandmother made in my likeness. And it more so resembles a story of connectivity that I have to her than anything else, you know. And I work as a model now, so like I have all these pictures and such, which are like on the internet. They say the internet's forever, whatever. But to have such a piece of beautiful fine art that was crafted after me in her legacy of creating the Black form as something that is, you know, dignified. It means so much to me to be a part of that legacy, to have my image be a part of that legacy. So I don't know, that was a long-winded answer.
No. That sort of leads me to another thing I was wondering about. So your mom's feeling about expressing the beauty of the Black form, do you think that had anything to do with your decision to go toward America's Next Top Model, or to model in general?
Maybe, I'm not sure. You know, I thought about that question a little bit, and it may not have been one of the reasons why I went into modeling. I was actually kind of pulled into it. I was discovered for modeling while I was living in New York. And it maybe wasn't one of the reasons why I started modeling, but it definitely has been one of my influences in my career. I'll say that for sure. Because as a woman of color who is of Black and Mexican descent, who works in the fashion industry, it has been increasingly difficult, you know, even with this new pop culture feeling of diversity and inclusivity. It is still very difficult as a woman of color in the fashion industry to make your way and to make a mark for yourself. So having work like my grandmother's to look back at, and having her life to look at as well, you know, I have been extremely influenced in the way that, you know, she didn't give up, you know, when she was rejected from Carnegie Mellon, she didn't give up, you know, she didn't give up when she got excommunicated from the United States. She continued making artwork for her people, you know, and it has given me a sense of pride. Her work and her life has given me a sense of pride to pursue my own creative aspirations within my own field, which is in fashion and beauty. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Oh, it does. I'm wondering, listening to the video, we heard your grandmother talk about stories of her grandparents. Did she ever share that with you, any of those stories of slavery and that experience?
She did sometimes. She did sometimes, but I have to say that I was really young at the time where I didn't retain a lot of the stories that she did share with us. She was a very proud woman, and I think that she liked to speak more about her successes and the successes of her people than reflecting more on the very difficult times of slavery that her family endured.
That makes sense.
She did, she did speak about it a little bit, but it wasn't necessarily something that we spoke about all the time.
Right. This is probably an unfair question, but are there some particular pieces of your grandmother's work that are very, very meaningful to you, other than, of course, the statue of you?
Other than Naima, well, let me see. Another piece of work that I got to see her working on was the Ralph Ellison tribute, which was The Invisible Man. I used to live in Harlem not too long ago, up until maybe about a year ago, and my dad still lives in Harlem, her firstborn son. And we could walk up on the West Side Highway. We could just walk up the street and sit underneath the statue and kind of like, just reflect for a little while. You can see the river and the Invisible Man. And I love that piece so much because it really showed kind of like her brilliance. How do you make a sculpture? How do you make something of visual arts of something that's supposed to be invisible? And she did it with such eloquence and such grace. And I was in Mexico the summer before watching her do the sketches for it. And just to have seen the whole thing come to life, it's this massive monumental sculpture. It's so beautiful. And it just reminded me of her brilliance and her genius as a creative person and a creative artist and a political artist as well. Let me see, there was a book that I had as a child, Lift Every Voice and Sing, when she did the lithographs for Lift Every Voice and Sing. And I remember leafing through that book a lot without seeing all those lithographs, which is really beautiful. That's a cherished memory of mine. And then in Mexico, she also had For My People, the lithographs that she did for that, the series of lithographs that she did for that, which was a really big book that I would pull out sometimes and look at those. And I think those are my favorite. Those are my favorite. I like those the best.
We were just saying how nice it is to see what a great balance she had between, figures from the Mexican community and figures from the African American community. So it was really nice to see that. One of the questions in the chat, I'm gonna make sure I ask those. Do you let people know who your grandmother is, especially those in the modeling industry? So do the people you model with, do they know?
All the time, all the time. All the time. Are you kidding me? My grandmother was like royalty. I share it with the world. Yes, I'm so proud of my family and so proud of the legacy that she left behind. It was when she passed away in 2012. It was it was a monumental moment for my life because the matriarch of our family had passed away. And it left me to question, well, what do I want to leave with the world, and what do I want to do with my life? And I'm so incredibly proud to be her granddaughter and to be a part of that lineage where I was not only inspired to share what she shared, but utilizing her life to inspire me to create something that moves people as well. So, yeah.
What do you think would surprise people the most to hear about your grandmother?
What would surprise people the most? I don't know. Because she was such a straightforward person, like she just like really calls people out and called it as it was. She did so with grace and eloquence and elegance, but she was just so straightforward that you just got a lot of who she was as a person. even in watching this video that we just saw, like you get a lot of who she is as a person. She was a very sweet, sweet and kind person as well. Like a very tough cookie, you know. She was hard on us for sure. She expected a lot of us. We all my cousins and I, we all have tattoos, a lot of tattoos. And when we were in our 20s, she was always so puzzled why we would show up with green hair or pink hair. You know, she's like, I don't know, maybe I'm from another time, but I'm always so confused. Why do you want to put all that all over your body? You know, but she after a while she became very accepting of it, and she became very celebratory of it as well. You know, like my cousin is covered in tattoos from like the neck down, and she's like, I don't understand why she wants to put all that on her body. But after a while she just, you know, became so accepting of it, and it was just an example of how sweet of a person she really is. You know, she's just like, those are my grandchildren, I love you all. And you know, and then after that she's like, oh, and then she got really interested in it, you know, because like it was, she could see, oh, this is actually art that they're putting on their bodies, and it's actual artistic expression that people utilize to express themselves and such. So I don't know, anything that was surprising about her, not particularly, because she was such an open book. She was a tough cookie, but very loving, like every grandmother is, you know?
Yeah. I can tell that from the few videos. She seemed to say exactly what she was thinking, so, which was very cool. Okay, another question from the chat. Do you have any of her art in your personal collection?
In my personal collection, I have a few of her prints, actually, but I travel around a lot, so they're actually at my sister's house hanging on her wall. I own a couple of the prints, but yeah, my life as a model, I move from country to country, city to city quite often. So I just have them up at my sister's house, where it's funny.
What did your grandmother think about your sort of life as a model and your experience on America's Top Model?
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna get to that question in 1 second. But this is another funny thing. So my sister and I, we always joke about, my sister's been married like 3 times already, my older sister. And she's gotten married within the time that my grandmother was alive. So she had the choice, she had the beautiful gift of being gifted these beautiful lithographs for her weddings. And I'm always like, darn it, I should have gotten married when Elizabeth was still alive. I could have had more artwork in my collection. But I, for some kind of a way, I have my modeling portfolio. I think my uncle said, save these prints, put them in your portfolio. And I opened up my storage unit one day and I was like, oh my gosh, how do I have Elizabeth Catlett in my modeling portfolio? Anyways, had to get them frames immediately, and now they're my own personal collection is very limited. It's very small. It's just 3 little prints, but they're on my sister's wall with her prints from her 3 marriages. But wait, the other question was, wait, what did you ask?
How did your grandmother feel about your modeling career and your
oh my gosh, she was
America's Top Model and the whole thing?
So proud. She took me to Oprah's house with her for the Legends Ball. She was so proud. She was like, I'm gonna take my famous granddaughter with me. At the time I was the show was airing on television and it hadn't finished yet, so no one really knew that I had won, but it was airing while it was running on television. She's like, I'm taking my famous grandchild with me. So she took me with her to Oprah's house for the Legends Ball, which was an incredible life.
That was like, what was that like?
You know, there was every influential person of color in the entertainment industry that I could even think about that I would have wanted to meet at that ball. And just to have so much talent and so much beauty in one room being celebrated all together. I mean, Barack was there, he spoke, and Sidney Poitier was there and he spoke. You know, and then Angela Bassett gave a poem, and then like, you know, it was incredible. I was sitting across from Tina Turner and Dionne Warwick, and next to and between them was my grandmother at the Legends table. It was phenomenal. I don't even know if I can put into words completely about how much that influenced my life, to be around all those beautiful, beautiful brown people in one room that were so successful. And, it must have been so much for my grandmother to have been there as well, because, her sentiments of the way brown people were depicted in Hollywood, in television, in fine arts, and to see so many celebrated people of color and brown people at this one ball, I'm sure was phenomenally like life-changing for her. And I remember when Barack was elected president, she cried, and I told her congratulations, because she never thought that she would see a Black man become president of the United States in her lifetime, having had come from, you know, as a granddaughter of freed slaves. And one of the cutest moments though, she comes back from Oprah's house, because it was a 3-day celebration. The first day was just for the legends. Only the legends were invited to Oprah's house. She comes back, she's like, Oprah gave me diamond earrings. And she's just like showing me her diamond earrings. And I had to ask my father what happened to those diamond earrings.
Oh,
But it was a beautiful experience, to say the least. To say the least.
okay, Zaya, I'm going to turn over to you for a minute. We're going to come back to Naima at the end, but if you could ask Mertice a few questions about Ms. Catlett's art as well, that would be great.
Sure. Okay, Mertice, please tell us about your impression of Elizabeth Catlett's work.
Well, first of all, I want to echo Naima's thank you for being able to join you this evening. It's such an honor. And quite frankly, I told Sandy, you don't need me, because I'm sure that the expert on Catlett is Naima, and I don't know what more I could contribute. I was just mesmerized by everything you said. Your grandmother would be so proud of you this evening. You're so lovely and so intelligent and eloquent in your speaking. And I'm like, oh my God, I love her. So, Epsilon Omega, thank you. This is a surreal moment for me to be able to share the platform with Catlett's granddaughter. It's just unreal. So I thank you for the honor of being here, and especially being able to speak with you and share this event with Naima, who's again an incredible young woman. So my impression, and again, I preface this by saying I am not a specialist or an expert on Catlett. I've had the privilege and the honor to represent her in exhibitions that have been held in the gallery, and to sell her work out of clients' collections. So I have had some experience with her artwork. And so I want to share with you those things about her work that I feel are so important. And one of which is that I believe that she is one of the most important women artists, American artists to have ever lived. Her work and the legacy that she left behind in her work is so critical. And I found this wonderful quote that I'd like to share with you, because I think it speaks to the purpose of why she created, why she was so compelled to create. And it is, I have always wanted my art to service my people, to reflect us, to relate to us, to stimulate us, to make us aware of our potential. And that statement is so impactful. She wasn't just creating art for its aesthetic beauty. She created art as her voice. It was her weapon against injustice. And I believe that that is what separates her art from many artists. Her art was used to support political causes and organizations, civil rights organizations. And I don't know how well that's known, but for example, she donated prints to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, she, Romare Bearden, and many others to support their causes. So, you know, that her art was really a weapon that she used in ways to fight against social and political injustice that she personally faced and dealt with here in the United States.
Okay, thank you so much. As a curator and art gallery owner, what about her work should we know?
Well, I guess in addition to what I've just stated, as a curator, I look at the work on and read it, right? Like, what are the symbolisms? What are the meanings, the themes, and influences that we find in Catlett's works? I made a list of just a short list of a few. So when we look at themes, I want you to read her work as, again, as a book. So look for the subjects of social injustice and how she's dealing with that through her imagery. Another um, ongoing theme in her work, of course, are the relationships between mother and child. And that's reflected in both her prints and sculpture. And that maternal bond, I think it's so beautifully expressed and so poignantly expressed. She was also dealing with issues of gender, certainly of race and class and education. So, you know, her work was to be of service to her people. She addressed the struggles of her people and in ways that were very real, tangible. We could feel the emotion in her work, and she wanted us to understand her plight, the plight of her people, and also, as was mentioned, you know, she brought in the concerns of Mexican people. You see that reflected in her work as well. And so the subjects are sensitive, you know, material imagery. Sometimes it was confrontational. For example, I think that like Malcolm X Speaks is one in which speaks to her cause of the causes she supported in social justice, like Black is Beautiful, sending strong messages in the work about who we are and to understand how beautiful we are as a people. So I think as a curator and a gallerist, those are the things that I look for in Catlett's work and other artists' work. So we know and understand the meaning behind the work beyond its aesthetic beauty. What is it that was important to the artist? What messages that they want to convey to us?
Okay. And how is her work viewed by other artists and historians?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I believe strongly, again, that she is one of the most important artists of our who has ever existed in the history of art. And I would be saying that whether Naima was on this platform with us or not. And I have a book that I think is one of the best. I hope you can see this, written about Catlett. It is written by, the author is Dr. Samela Lewis, who I know was a dear friend of hers. The title of that book is The Art of Elizabeth Catlett. It can be difficult to find, and it was published in 2000. So it doesn't have all of her work in it, but it's a beautiful sampling of her prints and her sculptural work, and you know the trajectory of her art making during the period that's reflected here. I think it speaks to the strength of her work, her materiality in terms of, you know, the different mediums that she used in creating her sculptures, the bronze, the various stones, let's see, metals. Okay, wait, let me be more specific. So she used, you know, marble and clay, bronze, and the list goes on because she was such a master. She was a master printmaker and a master sculptor. So she just had, her techniques were so refined And I think that's another reason why she is so celebrated. There's so many books written about her. Again, it speaks to how important she has been as an artist and the role she played in the arts, the Black arts movement. Again, using her art as a weapon to speak out against injustice. So I think that those things are the reasons why she has been so profound, why her legacy is so important. And again, she is studied by, you can't take an art history class, well, in a Black institution. I've taken art history classes in, other institutions where Catlett and other Black artists were not unfortunately mentioned. But I know in my dealings with HBCUs that where there is art, where there's an art class, she is always mentioned. Lots of scholarship around Catlett.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any favorite pieces of Miss Catlett?
Too many to mention. I love her prints. I have only one in my collection. So Naima, if you want to give up one of those three, you got to take her here. But I have, I can't mention one because I love so many of them. And I really did give that question a lot of thought. But her sculptures are so incredibly beautiful. I'm a mother of 3 sons, so I see the tender, loving care and relationships depicted in her work. I love the way she, in her sculptural pieces, especially where she really celebrates the curves, our bodies, our hips. The shoulders are always really strong, speaking to our strength. So again, when you're reading her work, read it with the understanding that everything that was done to create that piece was intentional and purposeful, and in a way, again, to celebrate who she was as a Black woman and who we are as Black women and our role in society.
I was amazed at how she was able to sculpt and shape the bronze. I had never really seen artwork done in bronze the way that Miss Catlett was able to capture her artwork. And I thought that was just absolutely fascinating. We have some questions in the chat. Let's see. Was Elizabeth Catlett formally educated or is she naturally talented?
No, she had a formal education. She went to Howard University for undergrad, and I cannot remember where she got her graduate degree. Naima, do you remember?
Iowa State.
Yes. So she she had received her MFA, so she was formally trained.
Okay. And what pieces of her artwork are currently on sale at your gallery? Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, I have 3 currently available, and I think that Sandy is going to share the screen. We provided images, so let's see.
One second. Pull those up in just a second.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
You're
not sharing yet.
Let's see.
I see a screen, Sandy, but it's nothing on it. Like the pictures aren't there. Just like a Zoom screen.
All right. It seemed to be working for me here. Try one more time.
Oh, someone, oh, here we go.
Sandy, if you just want to advance them, you can. That
Okay.
might be easier because there's only 3. So this piece is called Mimi, and I've been told, and maybe Naima can confirm this, that it was influenced by Catlett's goddaughter, godchild, and I understand that this was the last print that she created prior to her death.
Naima, does that sound right?
Grandchild.
It's her
Mimi is my
grandchild.
cousin.
Okay, thank you. Oh, good. Thank you for clarifying that. So yes, so this beautiful piece is one that is being offered through the gallery. Another, and this is if we have favorites, Mimi is one because I love the simplicity of the lines in that one. This one is 3 Women of America. And what I find fascinating about this piece is that it appears that there are the women in this print are white, Black, and Latina. And the way their bodies are intertwined, I think, was really beautifully done, showing the unity amongst women, the diversity of women in America, the strength of women. The center figure, the African American woman, I found it interesting that she shares, her eyes are shared with the white woman and the Latino woman. So again, I think this is a beautiful piece. Catlett as a printmaker, I think that piece shows the complexity of her work. Silk screening prints are very difficult to create. The ink is actually pressed through a screen and laid down with precision in order to result in the beautiful imagery with the artist's intention. And this piece, Fiesta, I think is one that just demonstrates joy. I researched to try to find if something written specifically about this piece, which unfortunately I was not able to find, I guess, at least on the internet. And I did search through a couple of books. So I could not find anything written about this piece, but I love the joy that's expressed in it. I know that Catlett created, at times she created prints for various festivals. I actually sold one not too long ago that she was commissioned, excuse me, to create for the music festival that took place in, I believe it was New Orleans. So this could have been one that was also inspired by that event.
Thank you. As we discussed a little bit prior to the session starting, your alum of MICA and my daughter is going to start in the fall. And so I'm always super excited to share with her other artists of color that look like her, trailblazers in art that she can look up to and get excited about her future. Can you tell us a little bit more about your career in Gallery Martise?
Yeah, so first of all, I need to clarify, I am not a visual artist. My education at MICA was through the curatorial program. So I took my curatorial training there. I cannot draw a straight line. So my creative outlet is writing. So I consider myself a literary artist, but not a visual artist. But my experience at MICA really changed the trajectory of my career. I had been in the arts for several years prior to going to MICA, and it was upon launching my brick and mortar space in Washington, D.C., that I realized that I was working in the arts on a very part-time basis, representing artists, helping them to secure exhibitions through other galleries. And at a point where I realized that this was my passion and what I wanted to do for my, life, I decided beyond just the art classes that I'd taken, I went back to school actually and enrolled in Hbcus and went through the curatorial program.
What is it like being a gallery owner and the work that
Well,
you do there in the gallery?
yes, I feel very, very privileged. I mean, it allows me opportunities like this, right? How else would have been able to interact with you all and Naima? And I mean, this is incredible. And when, it's just, this is unreal for me, quite honestly. I speak before a lot of folks, but it's moments like these where I know that I'm living a very privileged life. And also being able to work with some incredibly talented artists. I mean, we launched Amy Sherrill's career. So Amy and I are still, and I'm sure everyone knows that she's the woman who created the Michelle Obama portrait. But so I love it. It can be a challenge, as Catlett faced. This industry is very racist. It is still very segregated. It is one of white privilege. So there are a lot of barriers that are put up, especially now where we're looking at how popular, like I just lectured on the emerging Black art market. Black art has become highly sought after by people who are not Black. And so the trend now is that a lot of galleries that would have never considered in the past representing Black artists are now signing on Black artists and poaching artists, which means that they're going in and, approaching artists who are represented by Black galleries and signing them on. Because white galleries have had the advantage of existing far longer than many Black-owned galleries have. And so they have relationships with museum curators that many of us don't. And they just have an established ecosystem, art ecosystem in place that for younger galleries, we're still challenged with trying to, create those foundations. On the flip side of that is wonderful opportunities. Art has enriched my life in ways that I could have never imagined. And so having opportunities to travel, to curate exhibitions abroad, some of the greatest joys I experience is when we do have a sale and placing the art in the hands of a Black or brown client. Because now I'm telling you, it's become so competitive. And there are many artists who have taken a position with their galleries that they want to make sure that Black people, their work is accessible to Black collectors. Because white galleries, the more established ones especially, having clients who are extremely wealthy, these high net worth individuals, they put that work aside for them, and it's a barrier to Black collectors. Many of my clients are very wealthy and reach out to me in frustration because they can't buy the work, and they buy from other galleries, not just solely my own. And they are just really perplexed that they can't buy the work of certain artists because of those barriers that are put in place. So it can be a very complex industry, but we just do good work here, and the gallery is very successful. I'm really proud to say that.
Thank you so much for being with us this evening. I'm going to turn it back over to Sandy.
Thank you, Zaya. So Naima, we wanted to ask a couple of questions in the chat. Are any of the other members of your family visual artists?
That's a really excellent question. So Mimi, and a funny story behind that piece, Mrs. was after Elizabeth made Naima, the rest of my cousins were like, well, where's my piece at? So she went ahead and named a few of her sculptors, later sculptures and prints after cousins and such. So that was one of them. But Hasmin, who's Mimi, who's David. David is my uncle, who is the youngest of three brothers. Of her three sons that she had, who was actually very instrumental in helping her carve and create sculptures. So up until like when she stopped working completely, he was helping her. And Hasmin is his daughter. And David is actually a sculptor himself. He does a lot of woodwork, and he does a lot of what's the word? How do, maybe you can help me with this, Mercedes. He finds found objects and creates sculpture with that. So Hasmin is doing a lot of painting and a lot of sculpture work herself. My twin sister Nia actually is a graduate of School of Visual Arts for Fine Arts Photography. And she has implemented her work she's now a celebrated chef. So she kind of has like brought together like visual arts with culinary arts, and the food that she makes is really beautiful. She's an award-winning chef now. And my niece, who is my oldest sister's daughter, is at school at NYU for fine arts right now as well. She wants to be a curator as well. So yeah, it's in the family, you know. There were, you know, everybody's an artist, but you know, not everybody's doing fine arts. Like myself, I'm a model, but I also do acting and theater, and I write myself as well. I just finished a play. Paulina is she does film like her father. My second uncle, he's a filmmaker, so she followed after him. And yeah, everybody's an artist, you know, but not everyone is like, you know, visual artists. That's a good question though.
Creativity is all in the genes, definitely. So we'll finish off today with this question, which I'm sure you probably hear from everybody, which is, what piece of information about your grandmother do you want people to know that they may not? What do you want people to remember when they think about it? And even the newer generation who probably hasn't gotten a chance to, a lot of the older generation may have heard her name and they know about her, but maybe some of the younger generation has not. So what do you want them to know about her?
I've been going to an acupuncturist lately. And, you know, part of the work that I'm doing with my acupuncturist, she has me putting up little Post-its around my house of things to remind myself of. And my grandmother really, I think her message to specifically Black women, because, you know, it is very challenging for us to navigate this world, is to remember how beautiful and strong you are every single day. You know, so I have that one on my mirror, you know. Every time I look at myself, I'm remembering, you know, these words. And I think that was her message to specifically, you know, brown people. You are beautiful, you are strong, stronger than you know, you are intelligent, you are creative, you are brilliant. And it's, you know, with the influx, especially with young people nowadays, the influx of social imagery that tells us that we're not that still, you know, like you say, everyone's addicted to social media, and people are, you know, especially young people are aspiring to live lives that are completely a facade of something. They forget to tell themselves how beautiful they are, how strong they are, how resilient they are, how incredible they are, how creative, how intelligent. And if anything, you know, I think that is the message that I would want to help continue to spread as part of her legacy with the work that I do and with sharing the work that she's created for our people.
Wonderful. We just got one question added to the chat, so I would be remiss if I didn't ask. Was your grandmother spiritual?
With her parents. She
Have
had
a relationship with her parents?
Well, her father died when she was very young, but she had a very close relationship with her mother. my great-grandmother, who actually ended up living with the family in Mexico City before they moved to Cuernavaca. She came to live, and they joked about her being able to eat all the spiciest food all the time. And anything my grandfather made for her was never spicy enough. But was my grandmother spiritual? She didn't necessarily prescribe to a specific spirituality. But I think that you have to be a spiritual person to be able to connect to the hearts of other people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Mm-hmm.
So are there any other questions from people that they'd like to put in the chat or would like to unmute and ask? Okay, I think we're done. And so I just want to say thank you again for joining us. I'm going to put the survey for tonight's event in the chat. And I'm asking that anyone who is in attendance can please go and fill out the survey. And I just want to thank you both, Mertice and Naima, for joining us. It was, as usual, it's just hearing from someone who knows these phenomenal people in the way that you know your grandmother. We're the same, we feel the same as you, Mertice. We get chills too. You hear about someone great, but it's hearing this personal perspective is just a whole new kind of thing. So Naima, thank you for taking my calls and messages on Instagram. We love seeing all your Instagram stories continue with your fabulous career. And for those who haven't gotten a chance, please make sure you check out Gallery Mertice. It's a wonderful place. I had my book signing there, and since then I go and I check out their website all the time. Are you still doing the teas, Mertice?
Well, we have had to put those on hold, but we are allowing people to visit in small groups, with an appointment, and slowly getting back up full, production, so to speak. But things have been extremely busy and nothing has really slowed down. So we have an exciting exhibition up now, and then we have Tawny Chapman, whose show was a solo exhibition of her work opening May 15th. She is an extraordinary artist. If you don't know her work, visit our site in the next couple of weeks. We haven't previewed any of her work. We're keeping it a secret until closer to the opening. It is really exceptional. It's phenomenal.
Okay, thank you very much.
In the gallery.
Carol, did you want to?
I'm sorry, Carol?
Someone asked for the location of the gallery.
Oh, thank you. We're at 2224 North Charles Street, and we're in Baltimore. So if you Google either my name or Gallery Mertice, you can go to our website and enjoy it, at least virtually for now. But come by, we're here. We're really busy, so come by.
Thank you for joining us. This has been so wonderful. We've learned a lot. And Naomi, we love looking at you and hearing you talk about grandma. It makes us feel like we were there and we know her personally now. So we really enjoy that. And Mertice, thank you for your work with the gallery. And I think you'll be getting some visits.
Well, good. You're welcome. And Naomi, it was, again, such a pleasure to meet you. I hope we can meet in person one day. I learned so much about your grandmother, and I just honor her contributions even more.
Oh, likewise. Thank you so much, everyone, for having us. This was beautiful, and it really touched my heart.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy, for inviting me.
Oh, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.
Put the survey in the chat. Thank you.
Please do the survey. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Excellent job, everyone, as usual.
Yes.
I am